Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I'm just going to continue on with my friend's story, Rick Turner. And the reason I want to really emphasize his story is just to show you the injustice that was presented to this man. I never met him, don't know anything about him until he came to Florence. Through the course of the few months that he was in my block, we had a lot of conversations. And you know, I'm not trying to say that some of us deserve to be in prison while others don't. I'm not saying that some of us are more prepared to be in prison while others aren't, or can accept the environment better than other people. But those are what they are. I met some people in prison that, you know, regardless if I like the way what I'm about to say or not, is just the way I feel, is that, yeah, they probably belong there. Because one, they're nutty. Like nutty, like in violent, like they're just miserable, angry, and you know, if they ever let these individuals out, they're just gonna continue on doing what they're doing. But I've also met so many people that, if given a second opportunity, would do something with their lives, would be a productive part of the community. Without a doubt, I believe that there's so many individuals that are stuck in there that would do better with their lives if given the opportunity. But they're not able to because they're still being punished for the crime that they committed when they were 18, 19. I'm not making any excuses for their crimes. Or I'm not saying that they shouldn't have been in prison or convicted for what they did. I'm saying that a 19-year-old man has to be different. A 19-year-old kid and a 40-year-old man are not the same individual. Just from the simple fact that from being 19 to 40, there's a 20-year span in between for you to gather experience, life experience, knowledges, and through those experiences, you're able to grow and become and come into your own person. You have specialists, psychiatrists, therapists that will testify and say that our brain are not fully developed till the age of 25. So anything before then, you're subject to, you're impressionable. You're able to be manipulated. You're able to be coerced. Because no one in their teens have lived long enough to really comprehend who they are, what they believe, and what they're about. You know, being young, we always want to be part of the popular crew, popular crowd. Whether that's the preppy kids at school, the rich kid at school, or the bad kids, whatever. There's always a popular group that everybody else or somebody else wants to be a part of. And part of the things in the streets is these kids growing up, seeing these older guys out there gangbanging, out there hustling, got money, got cars, got girls. So these kids growing up, they want to emulate that. They want that. But they don't have a full understanding all the things that it takes, all the things that goes into getting these things. And when they jump into their life and experience it for themselves, they find out that maybe it's not always cracked up to be, and before long, they find themselves in the court system, about to receive 2 decades, about to receive life sentences. But by then it's too late for them. So for the next 20+ years, they're gonna go through life learning and gathering experience and wisdom. And come to a point in their life where, hey, this is not where I want to be. And I don't want to do things that's going to lead me back here. But again, it's too late for them because they've already been given the 40-year sentence, the 100-year sentence, the life sentence. So for the mistake that you made when you were 18, 19, you're not able to get back and do anything about it to redeem it or anything because you're not ever given another opportunity. But, a person like me, I lived a lifestyle that I knew was going to lead me into the penitentiary or was going to lead to my death. And somehow in my young mind, I convinced myself that I was okay with that I can accept that. And I did. I accepted it. I accepted my fate. I went to prison. I spent over 28 years of my life in prison, 24 straight on this last bid. And through the course of my time, through these last 20 years, I was able to learn and grow and come to have a better understanding of who I am and what I want out of life. And part of the things that I want is to bring a light onto the criminal justice system, to bring a light to what's going on in the BOP, what's going on behind that wall, things that the civilians aren't privy to, don't have a clue about, But, I expected the things that I saw in prison to happen because the lifestyle that I lived. So in a way, I've already conditioned myself to be able to deal with it. Where a guy like Rick, who's never been in trouble, who's never been in the streets, and now finds himself in a high security level penitentiary in one of the most violent, Florence. If anybody knows anything about USP Florence, you know they have a long history of violence. So through the course of the time that Rick was there, he saw people get chopped up. He saw people get butchered. He saw people get beat up. After he passed, I wrote his sister a letter sending her my condolences, but just really the purpose of the letter was just trying to let her know how he was doing while he was here. Because, they're home. And when you're on the phone, there's only so many things that you can share with your family. You're not going to be able to share with them all the craziness that's going on in there. One, you don't because you don't want your family to worry about you. You don't want them to know that you've been placed in an environment where life is cheap. That at a drop of a dime, the wrong word, the wrong facial expression can get someone killed. But, communicating with his sister through the letter, she told me that every day, he was always telling her that he was worried about his life, that he was worried about his safety. And at the time, I didn't know that he was being pressured by the skinheads, the neo-Nazi, the white supremacy group to join them, to adopt their ideology. But Rick is not a racist white guy. He grew up, he worked with, mental people. He worked in the healthcare system. He's helped a lot of people through the course of his career with their issues and their problems. But when it came time, when he needed someone to help him, there was nobody there. His sisters couldn't do anything. They were doing everything they could by going up to Capitol Hill to, beat the drums about the atrocity, the injustice that their brother received. And there was a couple of senators that wrote letters to the BOP with their concerns about his situation. But the BOP never replied to the letter. And then at the end of the day, when they finally did, after however many months, all they did was send the senator a policy of the BOP. Well, your brother's got to be there for 18 months. After 18 months, he can request a transfer if he's, followed every rules and this and that. That is a lie. Yeah, when I go into a penitentiary, my counselor tells me, oh, give me 18 months clean. After 18 months, if you want a transfer or stuff, we can look into it. They're telling me that I have to be there a minimum of 18 months. The BOP is telling the senator that is asking that maybe Rick should be relocated to a FCI, something of lower security, because he's a nonviolent offender, first-time offender. There's no justification that he should be placed in such a violent setting. The BOP never responded to those letters, and when they did, all they did was send the policy over. Again, they tell me I have to be at a place 18 months before I can request a transfer. But that's not the truth. I've seen countless people come through the USP 3 or 4 months being transferred to FCIs, 3 or 4 months being relocated to another USP. That 18-month shit, it's in there, written in their policy, but it's not handcuffing the staff, the administration, or anybody from getting a transfer. Perfect example, there's a lot of times where these dudes are victims. Like, they have USP points. They're a violent offender, but because they got X'd out by their gang or got beat up off the yard or whatever, they get immediate transfer to a FCI somewhere across the country to protect them. Now think about that. The BOP is more willing to compensate victims, dudes that are busters, dudes that are rats, dudes that are child molest. My last video didn't get the proper monetization, I guess because of some of the language that I use. So forgive me if I adjust my language a little bit so I can get monetized. But people are in there for, child abuse, the horrendous kind, for violating women, for being a freaking rat. These are all things that the BOP want to protect. They'll relocate these people so they don't get hurt, so they don't become victims. Or they'll charge the people that bust their head. These are the people that the government wants to protect. But people like me and others, they want to lock you up, throw away the key, and forget about you. Well, Rick, he's not either of those. Reading his case that he shouldn't be in a USP. He still got his 40-year sentence. He's still going to do the time. But the difference is doing the time in a place where people are getting chopped up every day, or doing time in a place where he can program and educate himself and better himself. There is no level of rehabilitation in USP. Anybody tells you any different, I will look at their face and tell them that they're a liar. The highest level of education that you can get in the BOP is a GED. They might teach you some word processing, but that's it. Any other class has to come from other inmates that have knowledge on a certain subject and decide to put up a class and invite people to come and join. But as far as the BOP curriculums is concerned, they are not educating you. There is no rehabilitation, and there is no pre-release programs to help you figure out how to get a job and how to get back on your feet. Now back to Rick, like I said, some of us might be a little more accustomed or adjusted to handling the environment and the life that is the USP. But for a person like Rick that's never been in trouble, this is a culture shock. And, through the course of my time having a conversation with him, it was that. He was always in a stage of, I don't want to say fright, but concern. Because, he's white. So he has to deal with the white politics. And the white politics is real strict. But it's not just strict. They're always trying to look to convert somebody to being a white supremacist, a neo-Nazi, a skinhead, and those that refuse, those that they see socialize with people outside the white race, they consider themselves a race traitor. So I can't speak on to the pressure or the stress that Rick was going through from the, or having to deal with from these prospective groups. I can only speak on my interaction with this man. And again, I came to really like him because he was an honest person, he was sincere, he was funny, and he was always there willing to help somebody out because he was really intelligent. And a lot of people inside the penitentiary are not intelligent. So he was helping people out with their legal work. He was able to type, I think, 100 or 120 words, a minute on the computer. So a lot of people were paying him to type up their briefs because you're like me, trying to sit down at a computer to type a page is probably going to take me anywhere the whole time I'm on the computer, which you're going to be on the computer for 30 minutes at a time. Then you got to wait an hour to get back on. So a lot of people were willing to pay Rick to type out their motions and their brief for him because, when you see him on the keyboard, his finger is just flying on the keyboard. But anyway, like I said, they turned our unit into an honor unit. So they kicked me out, of course. I went to EA. Just about 2 weeks later, the prison got locked down while I was in EA. We were locked down for just a couple of days, maybe 3 the most. And then they came back and, unlocked all the doors and we resumed normal operation. So when we got back off of lockdown, on my way to lunch, I still have friends in there in DA. I know everybody in the unit. I just got kicked out because I'm not an honor dude. So when we go out to lunch, because we know the incident happened in DA. So when we go out, people are coming out of DA and, it didn't matter what race they were, whether they were black, white, Mexican, Cuban, Puerto Rican, whatever. Everybody that lived in DA that got a chance to know Rick, that wasn't on no fucking bullshit as far as like racist shit or racist politics or any of that, that were just their interaction with Rick on a daily basis came back with the same conclusion. Like, this dude was cool. This dude was a genuinely nice guy willing to help people out. And everybody liked him because he never presented himself to be some type of gangster, some type of tough dude. And people appreciate that. You would appreciate that. You would rather have somebody present their true self to you so that you can decide if you like them or want to be their friends or not, as opposed to somebody pretending to be something because they think that's the kind of person that you like. Nobody expects Rick to jump in a riot. Nobody expects Rick to be running around with knives or trying to push some political issues or anything like that. And part of the conversation that I had with Rick was just trying to help him adjust to an environment, let him understand all the things that is expected of him. Because no matter who you are, when you come into the penitentiary, you're going to be affiliated with some type of group, some type of gang, some type of race. And with each affiliation comes responsibilities. So everybody gets on count. Everybody has a number. When something comes up and your number is called, you have to go deal with that. And that's why I was trying to share with Rick. I said, listen, I know you're not a fighter. I know that you're not a tough, you You're not a thug. You're not this gangster. And I know you're not cool with all this violence and stuff that's going on around you. But I understand that where you are at now. Where you are at, there's certain rules and certain things that are expected of you, expected that you abide by. And one of the things is that when your number is called to go on a mission, I was telling Rick, you have to go. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, you have to go. You have a 40-year sentence. Because when your name is called, you're going to go to the shoe. You're either going to go to the shoe because you were the aggressor and you beat up somebody, or you're going to go to the shoe because you refused to go on this mission and now you became a victim and you're the one getting your head stomped out. But either way, you're going to end up in the shoe. So I tell you, how do you want to go there? Do you want to go there by being somebody that met their obligation, by dealing with whatever situation, and now you go to the shoe and you're in good standing? Or you refuse, get your head stomped out, and now you got X'd out. Now everywhere you go for the next 40-something years, people know you got beat off the yard because you refused to go on a mission. And as far as the white car is concerned, they don't give too many people passes. So when you hit another yard and somebody knows that you refuse to go on a mission or that you checked in or for whatever reason, that shit's just going to keep happening to you until you come home or until the BOP find a place that they can put you where no one knows you. So putting all that thing together, and the person that I got to know, meaning that he was pretty much a square outside of his addiction that he went into outside of the little freaking shit that he spiral into. You know, because from beginning to end, it was like about a year from when he started going on his meth binge until the time he got arrested. It was over a span of maybe a year, a little bit more, but that span, that little period of time, cost him 40 years of his life in the penitentiary. And before I got moved out of the unit, I seen him, you know, it was like a few days or a week before I got moved out of the unit. I noticed him sitting on the second tier watching TV. You know, he had his earbuds in and he was watching the white TV on the second tier. You know, I'm very observant while I'm in the unit. All of us are creatures of habit. And I've accustomed myself to recognizing everything that I perceive as normal. Because when you're accustomed to seeing people go to this area, every morning, people's going to run to the phone. Some people's going to go to the email. Some people's going to go get coffee. Some people's going to go work out. So on and so forth. Some people's going to sit their ass in front of the TV, watch the news or whatever program. But we're all creatures of habit. So everybody does pretty much the same thing on a daily basis over and over and over again. It's like a freaking Groundhog Day that never ends. So I'm very hypersensitive to my environment. I'm not like spying on people or anything, but I'm cautiously being aware of my environment because that can determine that if I survive a situation or not, you know. So when I see Rick up on the second tier watching TV, it was out of the ordinary for me because usually he's in his room reading a book, listening to the radio, or he's in somebody else's cell engaged in a conversation. I don't rarely see him sitting in front of the TV with his headphones on. So I go up there, you know, like I said, we've become pretty cool. And I enjoyed having a conversation with him because he's an intelligent individual. You know, most of the conversation that I find myself in with some of these other dudes, you know, the only thing they're interested in talking about is guns, dope, and hoes. And half the shit is fabricated. So really those type of conversations don't interest me. So through the course of my time, I got to know Rick. So I got to learn a little bit about his mood, his body language and stuff, just by observing, you know. So on a particular day, I seen him sitting up there on the second tier watching TV. But it was out of place. So I mosey up there. You know, I went up there, he's sitting down, I said, "What's up, homie? How you feeling?" I was like, "Oh, I'm good." I'm like, "What are you watching?" And he was like he's sitting there in front of the TV, but he couldn't even describe to me what he was watching. So I'm like, "Man, what's going on with you?" He's like, "Well, I'm not really sure if I want to talk about it." I said, "Hey, man, you don't got to talk about anything, but I'm just, I just seen you up here and I was concerned." He's like, "My girlfriend just died." I don't know how to receive that kind of news, you know. This guy, just in the last 2 or 3 years, lost his nephew in a hit and run. You know, his nephew was a cop, and he was setting out spikes to stop these 3 teens that they were pursuing. And while he was setting out the spike, the 3 teens ran him over and killed him. That was Rick's nephew. And shortly after that, or shortly before that, I'm not sure of the timeline, his mother passed away with cancer. Now he's in prison with a 40-year sentence. He hasn't even been there a year yet, and his girlfriend died. I want to say it was a car accident, but I'm not exactly sure, so I don't want to say that. But his girlfriend died. And, at this time, I've been down 20 years. And through the last 20 years, I've been so blessed with not ever having to receive the news that he's receiving now. Through the grace of God, my family didn't not have their issues, but I was spared the phone call from the chaplain. When you're on the yard and they call out your name to report to the chapel, everybody know what that is, because you don't get called to the chaplain doesn't call you to the chapel unless somebody from the street call home with some really bad news, and he needs to bring you in so you can get on the phone. I've been there with my friend Trigger. His name's Alan, black dude from New Orleans, from Louisiana. We was in Atwater on the yard kicking it when his name came over the intercom. Hey, inmate Alan, so number so-and-so, please report to the chapel. I remember sitting there at my poker table. I wasn't playing poker. I was just sitting there next to the poker table while a couple white dudes was running my game for me. And me and Trigger, we was just kicking it. And we heard his name over the intercom. Please report to the chapel. When we heard that last part, please report to the chapel. We just looked at each other. And I could see the dread coming over him, because we both know that if you're being called to the chapel, it's not good. So he went to the chapel, came back on the next move, and you didn't have to ask him what happened, because you could see it in the demeanor. I'm fond of saying actors get paid lots of money to be actors, billions of dollars to play a role, because acting is not easy. You can't keep it up forever. So people that come in pretending to be something that they're not, eventually they're not going to be able to keep up the charade and get found out. And when they get found out, it might be harmful to them. So when Trigger comes back, even if he wanted to act like nothing was wrong, you can see it because he's not an actor, you know? And it turned out that his mom had passed away. And how do you cope with something like that when you're locked in a cell, serving life sentence, and your family and your friends out here through the course of the decades are moving on, dying on you? Like, I can't really speak to what goes on through those individuals' mind because, like I said, I've been blessed that I've been spared that. But here's my friend Rick, sitting up there. I know in his mind he's contemplating all the stuff that's led him to this chair at this moment in time. And there was nothing for me to do. I didn't know what to do, but I knew he liked chocolate, so I went down to the store, man, and bought him 3 chocolate bars, you know, a couple Snickers, some Milky Way or whatever, and gave it to him. Because there's nothing I can say to make the situation, to make him feel better. And I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I'm a dude. I don't really get into these emotional, personal conversations with anybody. You know, my wife sees me cry all the time, but that's my wife. But being in there, you have to be more reserved with your emotions and your feelings, because it's messed up that there's people that live off other people's misery. When they see that you're miserable or you're down and out or whatever, they want to come there and poke and provoke you because they themselves are miserable, and they just somehow want to find a way for somebody else to kill them. But you know, we left. They changed the unit. We left. A couple of weeks later, after we came off the lockdown, the people that came out of DA told me that Rick had hung himself. They found him in his cell. And, you know, I don't know his family or anything like that. So when that happened, I just felt a sense of a need to write a letter to his sister, because I had all his information. Me and him, we had plans. We talked about things because we were both here from Utah. And at this time, I only had a couple years left before I was eligible to come home. And, you know, part of the things that I promised him, that if I made it home before him, that I was going to share his story. And then I'm grateful that I found a way, an opportunity to keep that promise to him. But, you know, it took the BOP 2 weeks to send his body home. Why 2 weeks? I have no idea. By the time his family got the body, he was already like decomposing. You know, they were still able to recognize that it was their brother, but it's been 2 weeks. I don't know if they kept him in a fridge or whatever, but Rick had wrote his family a letter before his suicide. And the BOP wouldn't release that letter until maybe 2 months after that. You know, my intro is, who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? This is not something that I made up. This is something that was told to me when I entered the system. Who is your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Please give us an address where we can send the body to. They tell you these things when you come through the gate because this shit happens. And my friend Turner and his family experienced it firsthand. They requested the body be sent to Utah, where his sister and the rest of his family lives. And 2 weeks later, his body was sent out here to Utah. Welcome to the USP.